Welcome back to another episode of the Even Year Dynasty Show. It's Tuesday. Hope everyone had a great weekend. We took a few days off recording. Congrats to the 49ers going back to the Super Bowl. Hopefully, we have a different result this time around, but start off with that. As it stands right now, we are 16 days from pitchers and catchers reporting to spring training. So it is coming up on us quickly here. Um, so Susan Slusser wrote an article a few days ago in the Chronicle where she was discussing how the Giants made a late push for Reese Hoskins, who, as we are probably aware now, signed with the Brewers for kind of a Farhan Zaidi special type deal. It was 2 for 34 million with the player opt out after the first year, um, which is almost identical to what Conforto got, like 1 million a year less. And a lot of people are wondering why they didn't go after Reese. Sounds like the Giants made a late play for him, but didn't offer anything remotely close. A lot of people thought Reese Hoskins would really want to come to San Francisco. He's a Sacramento native, went to Jesuit. A lot of people thought that he would want to come back to the Bay Area and play for the Giants. Um, and Susan in this article brings up a very valid point where it seems that um, Farhan Zaidi just desperately does not want to set the market for any position, any players, which, if you look historically at what he's done every year, he has not been the guy to set the market. The one massive contract that they had an agreement on, last season with Carlos Correa, it came after both Trey Turner and Xander Bogaerts had signed their deals. So it was down to Correa and Swanson. So he let the market get set before he went after Correa. And then obviously it didn't work out, which, there's probably a good thing in reality, though, having a player of his caliber would still, I think he's going to bounce back this coming year. But 13 years was a lot. But the point is, under Zaidi's tenure, they have just not been willing to be the market setters. And, Slusser brings up a great point with this where she says that if you're sitting around waiting for the market to get set, you're probably not going to get anybody, which there's a lot of truth to that, especially now where we're seeing piece after piece on kind of the lower end get taken off the board. Jock just signed a few days ago. Hoskins is gone. Not that I really wanted Jock Peterson back at all, but Teoscar Hernandez is already off the board. A bunch of the other, Hayward signed earlier in the offseason. A bunch of the kind of the lower, like that middle tier, these players are getting picked off. Now, I'm of the belief the Giants really shouldn't be shopping in that tier right now, especially position players. They're kind of in this spot where they either need to go get elite players or go play the kids. Like, we have a roster full of mid-tier players right now. So they're in this spot where they're going to need to either be a market setter or they're in a risk just completely whiffing on all of the remaining guys. Because the reality is you have kind of two high-end pitchers left and two high-end position players left. You can either try and go get Snell or Montgomery, which I personally, at this point in free agency, I don't really want either guy. I think it turns into just a huge deal that's going to look bad in a few years. And they have, with getting Robbie Ray, even though he's not going to help a ton this year until the back end, but getting Robbie Ray and Jordan Hicks, I like the thought of rolling with the young guys, filling out the rest of the rotation. Cobb will be back. Let Harrison pitch. Let guys like Mason Black or Wisenhunt forces his way up, or these guys like Keaton Wynn, Tristan Beck, let those guys pitch. I mean, the Giants need to start developing their own. So, and I really like their pitching. So I'd rather see what we have in some of the young kids. That way in 2025, maybe they want to go hard after Corbin Burns, who I like a lot more than Blake Snell. I value innings still. Maybe I'm a little old school in that respect, but I value guys that can go out and eat innings. So I would kind of lay off those two. But again, if they are interested, if you sit around waiting for Snell, as soon as Snell comes off the board, everybody that's left that wants pitching is going to be going after Jordan Montgomery. And the odds of you getting him at that point, once everyone knows the price, teams know like who's willing to go there. It just gets it muddies the water a lot on trying to get that guy. And the same thing happens with Cody Bellinger and Matt Chapman. Now, as we're recording this, it sounds like Toronto just signed Justin Turner, so you can probably take them out of the Matt Chapman uh, sweepstakes there. But supposedly teams like the Yankees are kind of snooping around. The two big teams, it seems like it's been the Giants and Cubs are the two biggest teams that I'm hearing about Chapman. Um, and then Bellinger, it's really been the Cubs, and they've mentioned the Blue Jays a little bit. I don't know if I see the fit there, but they've mentioned the Blue Jays. And the Giants, they just kind of don't mention a ton. But, if the Giants are really serious about trying to become a playoff team in 2024, realistically, they probably need both of those guys if they're going to compete. I mean, yeah, theoretically, the kids could come out. Luciano could all of a sudden just blossom before our eyes, become a stud. Matos maybe takes off, or Ramos, and Bailey turns into a two-way catcher that just, is awesome. I mean, there's a lot of things that could go right with the kids where all of a sudden it changes the outlook of everything. But as I look at the roster today, with those two guys, if they somehow manage to get both, I would feel pretty good that they're a playoff team. I wouldn't guarantee anything because you just don't know, but um, I would feel pretty confident. And getting both of them would help create an environment for like to foster growth for the young pitching. You'd feel a lot better going into the season with a ton of young pitchers, knowing that you potentially could have a top 5 defense behind them, because Bellinger's kind of a fringe Gold Glover wherever he goes. Chapman is a Gold Glover. He's won several platinum gloves, being the best defender in baseball. So he's elite at third base. And then you'd feel pretty good knowing that you have a guy that's probably the favorite for the Gold Glove at catcher. You'd have a second baseman who's kind of got robbed of being a Gold Glove finalist, so he's kind of like a fringe Gold Glove candidate. And then you'd have a guy in center field that now, as we saw with Matos last season, it might not translate outdoors, and it might be an adjustment, but you'd have a guy in center field that won 5 Gold Gloves in Korea. So you'd feel pretty good about the defense across the board if you did get both of those guys. So, there is, it's kind of the one scenario, obviously I've already made my case for Bellinger. I've made a whole video on that one, why I think it's worth it for him. I have said in the past that I'm not big on going after Matt Chapman. I don't think it's a prudent move going forward, especially for building a long-term competitive team. I think that's a deal that very easily could go sideways quickly, especially with him going into his age 31 season and the bat's already declining a bit. But I will say I have softened my stance a bit on Chapman, where I think if you get Cody Bellinger, he makes a lot more sense, because you can go get a guy like Matt Chapman with Bellinger, and it gives you a clear identity, which that's been one of my main complaints with the Giants. And it would get you, you'd be a defense first team. It gets you a little bit more legitimacy in the lineup. His bat has declined a little bit, but if you go look at his WRC plus, he's still been about 10 to 15% better than league average, and he's not a platoon hitter. So it's not JD Davis where you're going, he posts similar numbers, or Lamont Wade Jr., for example, where they post similar WRC pluses, but they really only play against lefties or righties, depending on the guy. You'd be able to put him out in the lineup every day. He gets a ton of extra base hits. In a perfect world, you'd want him hitting like 6th. Giants would probably have to hit him like 4th or 5th, which I'm not a huge fan of, but he is a legitimate, at least professional hitter. So you could get those two guys, strengthen your lineup a little bit. Defense would be amazing, I feel like, going into next year. And then you set up your young pitchers to have a ton of success and be well supported. So, this team really needs to figure out what they're doing going forward. And I made a video about, are they really just looking at 2025 and blowing smoke up everyone's rear end and acting like they're trying to win, but they're really not. They're comfortable just going into the season with what they have. And, if it's a happy accident that they end up really competitive, then great. If not, they'll sell at the deadline a bunch of the vets that are on expiring deals. I don't know, but if Zaidi's ever going to have any kind of success here, at some point he needs to be willing to set the market. So it's frustrating. I feel like I'm just like a lot of you guys. It's super irritating watching how slow this is moving. It's super frustrating watching the Giants seem to be just completely disillusioned with what's going on and have this unrealistic view of their team when they sit here and tell everyone that we're trying to win in 2024. But anybody that's watched this team the last 2 years and looks at their current roster can tell that there's no way that they think they can honestly be that naive to think this team is a playoff team as it currently stands. So, we'll see. Even if the guys aren't signed by the time pitchers and catchers report, Boris has been known to drag this, so it could end up all the way into spring training. Doesn't necessarily mean they're not getting anybody, but it feels like they're waiting for one of the dominoes to fall and the market to get set. And then all of a sudden it turns into it's just you against all these other teams that suddenly are going to be involved. And I just don't like their odds at getting anybody if they sit around and wait for it. So we'll see what happens. Tell me, guys, your guys' thoughts. Appreciate the support. We are like super close to 100 subscribers. Subscribe to the channel if you like it. I appreciate interacting with all of you guys. The support's been awesome. Leave a comment if you have anything you want me to talk about for the next video. Otherwise, we will catch you next time. Hopefully, we get some action here soon. I think we're all just ready for baseball at this point. But in the meantime, we got the Super Bowl in a few weeks. Go Niners. Hopefully, we get to see first championship in 29 years. Get a little bit of revenge on the Chiefs. So we'll see what happens. But have a good one, everyone.